Hello, welcome to lesson 10 and the final lesson of JavaScript from introduction to application. Today I'll be introducing you to jQuery, how you can use jQuery to interact with the DOM, and basically that's what we'll be talking about. And we will develop this simple application. Right now we have a working application, so you can type in the number, you know, find the answer. So I'll walk you through how to develop a simple application like this. So just like I mentioned, today we're going to be looking into jQuery. And to see, or get jQuery file, you can go to jQuery.com. And here you see the download. You can download the file here. But before we go into that, what exactly is jQuery? Actually, they have that on their homepage. What is jQuery? So according to them, jQuery is a fast, small, and feature-rich JavaScript library. Just JavaScript library is just a library that has a bunch of functions of features that you can use. So it's pretty much JavaScript, but they've written a lot of functions just to make life a lot easier, make coding easier for you. So there's something now that you don't have to worry about, because with jQuery you can just do those things very fast. So it said it makes things like HTML document transverser and manipulation, event handling, animation, and Ajax much simpler with an easy-to-use API that works across a multitude of browsers. So another thing, jQuery helps with browser compatibility. If you have jQuery, you don't have to worry about, oh, my code, is it supported on IE, or is it supported on Safari or Firefox? So they try to make your code works the same way on every browser. So they say with a combination of versatility and extensibility, jQuery has changed the way that millions of people write JavaScript. And this is very true. A lot of people did not like JavaScript until jQuery came along. And now a lot of people are using JavaScript. There's so many libraries developed off of jQuery. So we're going to get jQuery. So it's just a file of JavaScript. It's just we download a file and we can attach that file to our web page. So here is where we get the jQuery file. I click on the download and it takes me here. So now they have a new version 2.10. I haven't tried that, so let's go back to the one that I've tried, which is the 1.11.2. So I'm going to download. Here they have the compressed one and the uncompressed one. It depends on what you want, but the uncompressed one is always the best for development, so you can easily debug and you can look at the code and see what the code is doing. But the compressed version is smaller, it's lighter, so it's like on your production site, you want to use that. I'm just going to go and get the uncompressed one. I click on that, and so it downloads on my folder. It's asking me if I want to keep it. I say keep, and right now it's already downloaded. I go to where it's downloaded. Right here, I can say show in folder. And it showed me right here, this is where it is. So I'm going to copy it and put it in my solution. I have it right here, the jQuery-1.11.2. So that's what we're going to be using. And this is the file that we're going to be using, the calculator. And this is the style that the calculator is using. So let me show you the HTML real quick, so you know what we're going to be talking about. So the HTML is pretty straightforward. It's so simple. So here I'm using a style, so I'm not writing the style on the page like I was doing. I'm just linking to this style sheet, which is I call it style.css. And here I have my calculator HTML. So it's pretty straightforward, and it's that simple. Yeah, that's it. And the CSS, I'm going to pop that one up real quick, and let's open that. So this is the style. I have the style here. Yeah, it's really basic, nothing extensive about it. So we come here, and one thing we want to do is to add jQuery to our site. So right now we don't have any the only thing we have linked to this page is the style. So we need to link jQuery to the page as well. So how do we do that? So I'm just going to go to the bottom of the inside the body. I'm going to do script, and inside of this it has a source, src. That's how you put in the source. The source is going to be our jQuery file. And if we go back again and see what the name says is jQuery, I can just copy the name from here. So I copy it and I paste the name here, .js. So now that we have jQuery referenced on our page, now we just can start writing our code. And just like we did for jQuery here, I want to do the same thing for our calculator code. I don't want to write on the page here. I want to write on a separate file, on a JavaScript file. So what we can do is create a new file. Here I just double clicked, and I'm trying to create a function for our calculator. So I'm going to put every function, everything that we're going to write today inside of a function called calculator. So we have calculator. So this is where all the code is going to live. And let's save it. I'm going to save it as, I put it in the same folder that all my files are contained. So I call it calculator. So I call it calculator.js, and I save it. So now you see everything is turned to JavaScript file now. And let's try to reference that on our page. So we do the same thing here. I'm just going to copy this, paste it, and I'm going to change this to calculator. So now we have our calculator code referenced from the page. So let's take a look at the calculator. Here on the page, we want to be able to click and something happens. Right now we're clicking and nothing is happening. We click, nothing happens. So what we want to do now is to make sure that when we click all those numbers, we can actually see something on the screen. So the screen is broken down into two parts. So let me show you. I right click and inspect element. So the first part, you see the top part is called the top screen. I call it the top screen. And the bottom one is the bottom screen. So you can see the names here. So the top part is where we display our inputs, and the bottom one is where we display the results. All right, let me close this. So I'm going to start by creating like two variables, one to hold the top screen and the other one to hold the results screen. So I'm going to call the first one $, top screen. So $, is just for me to remember that this one is a jQuery object. And how do we get that from jQuery? We do $. So in jQuery you use $, and it's like a function. Your function is $. Then you put the element that you're trying to reference. So here we use a CSS selector. So on CSS we are looking for ID. In ID in CSS we use the $, as for ID. So we're looking for top. So top screen, this one, jQuery gives us this element just by doing this. You remember how we used to get element with using JavaScript, where you have to do document dot get element by ID, then you do inner HTML, whatever. You don't have to do that with jQuery. So just with this, jQuery gives you this element. And so we have that element in the top screen, and we can get the other element, which is the result screen. And we'll do the same thing, use the $. So you use the $, and we call that one bottom screen, and we have this element right here. And one thing we can do, we can put comments on our code just so that we understand what we're doing. So we can say this one, the top screen, is the screen for input. In JavaScript, there are two ways you can write your comments. So comment is just a line, just to any expression you can put in there, and it's not going to run as a code. This is not a code, so you can put just so that you understand what is going on there. And I can put another one here. This is another way you can do this with asterisk. So anything between this is going to be a comment. So I can just say this screen for results. So you see the two ways. One way is to do a double slash, and another way is to do a slash, then an asterisk. You put your value inside and you close it by doing asterisk and double slash. The difference is that this one can only be used for one line of comment. So you can only do one line of comment here, but this other one, you can go so many lines of comment. So I can go like this and type something else here, like our result. So this one starts the comment and this one ends the comment. So those are the two ways you can write your comments in JavaScript. All right, we have the top screen and we have the result screen. So what we want to do is to write a function. I'm going to put that function inside of this function, the function add button value. So this function is going to take whatever value that we want to add to the screen, and I can call. So I call top screen dot append. So JavaScript gives you this append function. So the append, what it does is to append this value. That means to add this value to what you already have on the screen. So we have top screen, and we're doing top screen dot append, and we'll put a value here. So we're using, remember, Java. This is all jQuery. jQuery is giving us this append function. But what we have right now is just a function that's going to put that value on the screen. But right now, nothing is putting it on the screen. So I'm going to call this num_click. So this function is the function that's going to make sure, so when you click the button, then it passes a value to this add button value. And the first thing we need to do is to get our buttons. How do you get the buttons here? The same thing we've been doing, and we do nums. If we go to this HTML, this is a div num, and all our buttons, these are the buttons with the numbers on them. So you see all of them, they're like in this class num column. So what we're trying to do is to get these columns, but we're trying to get all the buttons inside of this div. So that's what we're trying to do, get all the buttons inside of this div. So we're doing the selector that CSS uses, and that's going to be nums, then you put space, button. So this one gives you all the buttons in this div. And remember, this is a dot, and that's telling you it's a class nums, and all the buttons in that class. That it gives you all that. And with jQuery, what you want to do now is to say, okay, when I click, and it comes so natural, just the dot click. So when you click, what happens? So this click method, it actually takes a function. So you can write the event handler in this click. What I mean is, when you click, what do you want to happen? So you put a function here that does the thing that you want to happen. So how to do that? You can just put function. And remember, I'm putting a function here that doesn't have a name. So this is another thing. You can actually write a function in JavaScript that doesn't have any name. So we are putting a function inside of the click method, so that when you click, whatever the code that you put in this function is going to run when you click that button. And remember, this is kind of really cool because on the button, like on the HTML itself, you don't have to put you don't have to put anything on this HTML, like say, on click, just like we did in the last lesson where you put on click. Here you don't have to do anything like that. You just put everything in your code, So you do, when you click here, now you run this code. So what code do we want to run? The first thing we need to do is to capture the value that is on the button. So the value on the button, how do we get that? I can just say variable value, which is the value on the button, or let me call it button value. It's going to be, so jQuery gives us something called base. So you pass the base, that's a function, you pass it into the jQuery method, and for some reason it gives you the element that you just clicked on. So it passes the element that you clicked on. So if you have the element that you just clicked on, you can just do dot text. So dot text, it gives you the text of the element that you just clicked on. And if you have that text, that's the button value, you can simply just pass that value into add button. So when we click, we want to run the function here. And the function says, get me the text. The text, if you go to the screen, is, if I click on this, I want to get 7. If I click on this, I want to get 8. That's the text in there. That's the value that is in this button. So we have the text, and we're passing that text to add button value. And we'll see what our button value is going to do. It's going to append that value to the top screen. So we save it. But right now, we still haven't put everything together yet. We say click, but remember, this is a function, and we have to call that function. So what we can do is say this dot init. So this dot init, you'll see how we're going to use it. all this function that you see right here, they can only be called within this function. So they can only be called within calculator. So what by doing this, saying this in this context means calculator. So it's saying calculator dot init gives me this. So that way you can call this init outside this calculator, and we can call the num click here. So the whole essence is to, when we start this calculator, we're going to call the init. So the init is going to run the code here. It runs this num click. That way it enables that button. So anything that we do, anything we put here is going to run on that button when we click on it. So and this is still not going to run yet. So what we need to do is to go on our calculator page on the HTML side and try to run it from here. So what we can do is the script, and we're going to put our code here. So what we want to do is we have a variable calculator. It's equal to new calculator. So the calculator function that we created, we can we create a new calculator here, and we can say calculator dot init. So by calling the init, it kind of runs the code that we have inside of the init. So that's like initializing it. Kind of initializes the button for us. So I'm gonna save it, and let's see what we have on the screen. I refresh and click. I click, nothing is happening. So I want to know what's going on. I click on this just to see, and it's saying calculator is not defined. The first thing is unexpected identifier on line 11. So let's go back to line 11 of our code and see what we have there. So, well, we're missing a curly bracket here. So that's why we're getting the error, and I can save it. And again, if you look here, there's a typo. Instead of calculator, I type something else. So we have calculator. I'm going to save it, and let's try to. So let's refresh the screen and type. You see, we have all this. We have all this, but it's giving us all the things that we don't need. You see, we can type all this, and it's just everything is just there. Like this, for example, we don't want it to display just the way it's showing up right now. So what we want is just the number. We want only the numbers. When we click on the number here, this one, we can find another function that will do, that will do that for us. All right. So how do we capture only the number? Let's go back to where we're capturing the buttons. So this is the buttons, and if we go back to here, we'll see that these are the numbers, and the one that doesn't have the numbers here, the ID, it has an ID of sign. So do you want this sign that has a plus or minus? So we don't want to display this, and we want to remove it from our selection. So how do we do that? So JavaScript gives us a chance to do that. So we can just do colon, say not, and we put down there, say sign. So what we're saying is that we want all the buttons, but any button that has ID of sign, don't bring it. We don't want to select it. So this is going to do that for us. So when I save it, let's go back to the screen. So we come here and let's see what happens. I'm going to refresh the screen, and we do this. We come here. So this is not there anymore. So we still have this. We have the decimal. We can do all that. So now we have our numbers displayed on the screen. So now we should try to display the operators, because now we don't have the operators displayed yet. So we should try to display the operators on the screen. And to do that, I'm going to create another function that will do that for us. I'm going to do function operator underscore click. So that's what I call the function. And it's going to be, but let's try to select all the operators. So I'm calling the signs, the plus sign, negative sign, I'm calling them the operators. So let's see how we can select them. So these are the operators right here. They are contained in a class called operators. You see all of them? They are in one class called operators. So we can just call all the buttons inside of this operator. So I'm getting that name. I come here and do the class dot operators, then all the buttons in the operator. So it gives me all the buttons, and I'm saying when you click, they'll click. So I'm going to write a function, what is going to happen when you click. So the function here, and I can pass in what is going to happen. So the value is going to be, I pass in this into the jQuery sign, the $sign dot text. So the text is the text that is written on that button, and I capture that, and I want to display this. I want to append it just like I've been doing with the other one. I want to append it to the screen, but I just don't want that by itself, because if you append it, it's not going to look cool. You know, like when you display the numbers kind of go next to each other. But when the sign comes, I want a space to be between the number and the sign. So what we can do is to put a space here. So empty string, you just put space in that plus the sign. So I put a space, then plus the sign, and I'm assigning this. I pass this one into add button value. So I put a value in it. And don't forget, we have to run this function. We just created the function. So we put this function in the init. So because we are calling the init on our page. So once that init is called, it runs these two functions. So let's save it. And I go to the screen, I refresh. Now I have 7, 8, 9, that's 789. When I do times, you see that space right there. I do 5, 6. So you see how we have a space between the number and the sign, and there's no space here. So what we need to do is just go back and put another space after that sign. So we go back and just do the text, then plus, we put a space here, and we'll save it. Go back, we refresh the screen, we do 789 times 6, everything is nicely formed now. So next, we want to be able to clear the screen. So when we press this or this, we want the screen to just disappear. We want to clear everything. How do we do that? Let's just create a function that we're going to call clear screen. I'm going to put it right here. And what it does is to set the value here, the top screen. Set the text to nothing. So text, and inside the text, I'm putting an empty string there. So it gives me nothing. And I'm going to set the bottom, the result screen. I'll set that one to 0. So the text, I put 0 there. So once you click, you do clear screen, it clears the top screen, and the result screen set that value to 0. So we need a button to do that. And the buttons that are going to do that, when we go to the calculator, the clear button, we have this CE and C, and their ID is CE and C. So we want to make sure that these buttons, when they're clicked, it calls that function that we just created. And so now let's create that function that does the clearing. Say function clear underscore click. So this is when you click clear, it's gonna call this function. And there are two buttons that we're trying to capture here. So we have the ID of C, and with jQuery you can actually capture multiple elements. So you do ID of C, that captures that first one, and doing the ID of CE, it captures the second element. So now we have both of them. So if you click any of them, so we do on the click, if you click any of them, we already have a clear screen function, so we don't have to rewrite the function. So this function is when you click, it does this. So you can just put clear screen, pass clear screen into it. So you see how we're passing like in anonymous functions, the one that doesn't have any name, we pass in here. But this one actually is a function that we created that has a name. We just pass that same function here, and it's going to work the same way. So when you click this button, it calls this function and it runs this. And like we've been doing, we have to make sure we add this to our init. So it's going to call it. So I already saved it, and let's go to the screen, refresh. I add this, and I do clear, everything is gone. I do that, I do clear, everything is gone. So next we're gonna do backspace. So when we click this, we want to be going one character at a time. So to do that, I'm just gonna create a function that does a backspace. I'm gonna put it right here, function backspace. And what it does is to, we capture the value of top screen. That's what we want to backspace into. So I get a text. What I want to do is I want to delete the last character. So I want to make sure that the last character is removed. But before we even go into that, we want to make sure that there's any value. If there's no value there, there's nothing to do. You don't have to do anything. So if somebody, you already have some inputs on the screen, I'm going to check if there's something there. I'm going to say if value the length, if the value of the string is greater than 0, that means if you already have something displayed on the screen, then I want to remove the last character, just reduce it by 1. So what I'm going to do is to use first I'm going to find a trim. So I do value equals value dot trim. This is one way to do it, or you can use the jQuery way of doing it. You can just do trim and you put value in it. So it's going to remove all the extra spaces around it, and it gives me the real thing that we have on the screen. So I remove all the spaces and I try to remove the last one, the last character. So using the substring. To do the substring, I just do value dot substring, and I'm trying to capture from the first character up until the second to the last one. So which is going to give me my value dot length -1. So capturing from the very first character up to the second to the last character. So what I'm saying is that I'm capturing from first character and I want this length of characters. All the characters but the last one. So the top screen dot text is now valid. So this is the backspace method, but we need a function that is gonna do that for us. So let's create a function called backspace underscore click. What I want to do is capture the backspace button, and let's go find what the backspace button is. So the backspace button is this button, and it has back as the ID. So I put the ID in back. So when you click on this button, say click. If you click on this button, I want to run this backspace. And again, I need to put backspace inside of init. So I save it. And let's go to the screen and see how that works. So I do all this, do that, do that, do that, and I do backspace. So you see one character is gone, backspace, 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 backspace. And that works just the way we planned it. So next, we need to find a way to calculate whatever value we have on the top screen. So we calculate the result and it is displayed right here. So the first thing we want to do is create a function called calculate. So I do function calculate. So what we want to calculate is, first let's capture the value that we have on the top screen, and we want to, just find a variable, create another variable for the result. So we don't know the result yet, so we just do that one here. If the value on the screen, if the length is greater than 0, that means if you have something on the screen, then we need to do something. So our results can now be eval. So this eval, it takes a string, just any random string, and it tries to calculate, based on using JavaScript's kind of functionality, trying to calculate the value of it. So it's kind of like a cheating here, trying to cheat and get a value, but that's what we're going to do for this lesson. So I'm going to pass the value here and try to get a result. But the problem is, if someone types something that doesn't make any sense, and this is going to try to run it, and it's going to fail, it's going to tell the program is going to stop running because there's going to be an error. So what we want to do here is to put this in a try catch. We call it try catch block. So try, what it does is to try to run this code, and if there's any error, it goes to the catch block. So this is the exception. The exception contains the error that happens. It's going to tell you what error happens and all that. But what it does is to try, so if there's anything goes wrong, it's not going to stop your code from running. So it just comes here and tell you. So here you can handle the error. You can tell them, you can do whatever you want to do with the error, but it doesn't stop your code from running. If you leave it without a try catch, it's going to blow up and your code will stop running, and you don't want that. So if there's any error, you just tell them, in the results, you just display error. Tell them there's an error. And I'm going to kind of put the result as 0 to start with. And if anything goes wrong, I have an error there. And I'm going to return results. So this is what we have here. We do the calculate and we return the results that we have. So another thing we need to do is to actually display whatever result we have here on the screen. So we need a function that's going to do the display. So the function is we're gonna call it function display results. And what it tries to do is to display on this screen right here. I'm going to copy it and come here. So display result takes a value, you pass the value that you want to display on it, and they put it on the screen for you. So that's pretty simple. So I get a value from display result, and I'm putting it in the text, the result screen.text. It takes the value and it displays it for you on the screen. Now we have everything that's going to display the result, but we need to be able to click something to display the result. Like if we click the equal to sign, then we can display the results. So let's write a function for that. We come here, write a function that when we click the equal to sign, then there should be a result displayed. So I'm going to call it function equal underscore click. Then when I click equal to sign, and the equal to sign, if we come here to check, the equal to sign has the ID of equal. So let's use that. So use the jQuery to capture that button. So equal dot click. So when you click, what do you want to happen? So when you click, you want to do the math, you want to do the calculation, then display. So we're going to create that function that does that for us. The function that does the calculation, then display. So first we do the calculation, which is going to be, capture the results. We do calculate. So when we calculate, we get a value back, and we try to use that value to display. And the method that does display is display result. And we come here and say result. So pass the result into display result so you can display it for us. And again, we have to add this to our init. So I'm going to save it. So refresh the screen. Now I have 7, 8, 5 plus 3, 6, 9 equals, and we don't have any results. So let's see what we're getting. Why don't we have a result? We come here and it says result is not defined. So that's a typo on line 79. So if we go to line 79, we see where the typo is. You see where I typed the result wrong. So put the E there, save it, and I'm going to refresh the screen, close this, do minus that equals, now we have the results. What we can do times 9 equals, we have the results. Okay. So next, let's calculate the square root. So calculate the square root, we create a function that does that for us. We do function square root underscore click, and we use jQuery to capture that button. What is the name of the square root? Let's find out. Well, we come here, and the square root is actually called square root, sqrt. So we come here, sqrt dot click. So when we click the square root, we want to calculate the square root and display the results. So how do we do that? We do function So it first calculates the result on the screen, and it tries to find the square root. So I'm still going to use the same result. In JavaScript, they have a math library that you can use to do a lot of mathematical expression. So we have math. The library is called math. Then you do math dot square root, and that does the square root for you, passing the results. And it does the square root for you. So once you have the square root, then you can call display result to display the result for you. So we pass the result into it, and it should display it. But don't forget to add this to the init. I'm gonna save it. So refresh the screen. I have 78, and I do square root, and it gives me the square root of 78. If I clear, I do 81. The square root, it gives me 9. The square root. So if I clear, do 9. The square root of 9 gives me 3. So next is the percent and the inverse sign. So this gives you the inverse of the number. So we're going to do both together. So we do exactly what we did for square root, and I'm just going to copy this and copy and paste it because it's going to be very, very similar. I'll copy and paste and change the value later. So this one is going to be percent click, and the name of it is actually called percent too. It's percent. So when you click percent, we want to do the calculation, of something, whatever we have on the screen, we calculate it. And percent is pretty much just multiplying by 100. So I'm just going to say result times 100. And if there's an error in your calculation, then this is going to look really, really crazy. So, well, we have the result here, result times 100, and we're going to display the result here. And for the inverse, we do inverse and inverse del click. So we do the same thing here. For the result of the inverse, it's just inverse. So 1 divided by that number will give you the inverse of that number, and we're displaying the result. So pretty much doing the same thing here. Well, my homework for you is going to be for you to calculate if there's an error. You have to handle that error. So if the result returns error, because from our calculate, remember, we can actually return error, which is a string. So my homework for you is to go, if this value is a string, try to return an error, and if not, try to return a number. So that will be my homework for you. So now we have both percent and inverse, so we're going to put them here. So I'm going to save it, refresh our screen, and we do this divided by 10, and I'm going to find a percent, and it says it's 80%. That's working fine. And whatever I have on the screen, I can find the inverse of it, and that's 1.25, working great for us. If I do equal to, I get all that. So we have all the buttons here working. So this brings us to the end of our JavaScript from introduction to application, and I hope you had a good time as much as I did. Well, if you have any question, feel free to post on the video. I will attend to you as much as I can. Well, thanks a lot for watching again, and I hope to see you around. If I have more videos, I'll post them so you can see. Thank you.